Hey there, it's CJ Will and I'm cracking a pack. Today is pack number 2 in my Magic the Gathering Ikoria Lair of Behemoths bundle. Check out my preview video on the Ikoria bundle as I explain the concept of what is your pick. I've added the link to the preview video in the description below. So today I'm not going to talk a lot like I did last video. That was like a 17-minute video. So really quick explanation on what is your pick is that in my play group we do a very different draft. We'll get the booster packs out of the booster box. There's 4 of us. We'll do 3 rounds of draft. We'll do the draft like anywhere else. But the difference is once we're done with the 3 rounds, we'll total up the record first through fourth. We'll put all the rares and mythic rares back into a pile, and then we'll do a draft out of those rares. So depending upon how well you do, the better rare you can get. For example, I finished second in our Ikoria booster box break over the past weekend, and with second place, I was able to pick Luca, whereas my friend got first place and he took Luminous Broodmoth. And it's kind of a fun way to, do a booster box draft. In that way, a lot of times for us, uncommons and commons sometimes are more of a focus than the rares, because in the packs that we open, if you draft the the uncommon or common, you keep it. Whereas you've got to do really well in the tournament, so to speak, to be able to get the best rare or mythic rare out of the pack. So today we're on pack number 2. I'm going to spend not as much time hopefully on the commons and more time on the uncommons and rares, or hopefully mythic rare out of the pack. And once again, my focus is going to be on a very casual Magic the Gathering player viewpoint, because we don't spend a ton of money on, buying the best cards, out of standard, or spending a lot of money on the cards. We, spend most of the time on, getting cards, cool cards out of the packs and using them. We might occasionally spend, a buck or two here or there to get a really cool rare, but basically whatever we draft out of these packs is what we put into our deck. So my single copy of Luca is going to go into a deck and hopefully win me some games. Anyway, first card is Blitz Leech. 6 mana, 5 and a black. It's a leech. It's a 5/2. It has flash. When Blitz Leech enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Remove all counters from that creature. I originally thought this card was garbage. I thought for 6 mana flash, why would I care about a 5/2? In the drafts that we have done and watching it being played, I haven't had the opportunity to play it, but I've had it played against me. This thing did some work. Post-combat damage, took out my creature because, it only needed, 2 more damage. It blocks really well as a 5/2. You can mutate on top of it. Blitz Leech went from being like a D, almost unplayable card, to being like an uncommon in black that I would play in any given draft. Next we have Tentative Connection. 4 mana, 3 in a red. It's a sorcery. This spell costs 3 less to cast if you control a creature with menace. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. If you're not playing this in a red-black deck, it makes no sense. But in a red-black deck with menace, a single red mana is still a creature. Yep, pretty good card. So obviously not a card that you would draft in any other combination of red, but in black-red does quite a bit of work. Next we have Greater Sandworm. 7 mana, 5 and 2 green. It's a worm. It's a 7/7. Greater Sandworm can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. You can cycle it for 2 generic mana. So a reprint from Amonkhet Cycle. This is a card in a green deck that I definitely played, and it won me a game because being a 7/7, it's hard to defend against, and unless you've got some sort of removal, Greater Sandworm's going to get in there continually and do the damage you need to win the game. Aegis Turtle. Single blue mana. It's a turtle. It's a 0/5, nothing else. I was hoping to combo off Aegis Turtle by giving it a vigilance counter and then using solid footing. The combo never showed up for me, and I found that sure, it's a 0/5 blocker, but it gets outclassed pretty quickly, and with menace counters running around in the set, sometimes it wasn't a utility blocker like what I wanted it to be. Next we have Whisper Squad, single black mana. It's a human soldier. You can pay for a 1/1. You can pay 1 and a black, search your library for a card named Whisper Squad, put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. So funny instance about this card, one of my friends actually went hog wild with this. In one of our drafts, he got 3 of them, and sure enough, every single game, turn 1, he'd play this, go search up the other 2. You can mutate on top of Whisper Squad. It did some work. So it went from being what I thought was a joke card to definitely being a card that I lost a game to my friend because I got overwhelmed by Whisper Squad and creatures being mutated on them. And when I wanted him to sacrifice a creature, there was a couple times I was playing a deck where I needed him to sacrifice a creature. I never played the card because he had 3 Whisper Squads out, and the creature I wanted dead, he's just going to sacrifice a Whisper Squad. So anyway, it was a card that ended up being kind of funny, and in draft, I think, depending upon a number of copies you can get, 3 or 4 of these is realistic. Pyroceratops, 4 mana, 3 and a red, elemental dinosaur. It's a 2/3. It has trample. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Pyroceratops. This card didn't pan out. I tried it one time in a draft round. In a couple other draft rounds, 2 of my friends tried it out. Ikoria just didn't seem to be the spells kind of mattering deck where you'd be playing instants or sorceries or enchantments and you buff this creature. There was quite often that Pyroceratops ended up being just an overcosted 2/3. So it wasn't a card that I was really excited about playing, and when I didn't really pan out. Fire Prophecy, now this is a good red card. 2 mana, 1 and a red, instant. Fire Prophecy deals 3 damage to target creature. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. If you do, draw a card. Fantastic way to, rummage, if you will. You're going to cast this card. You're going to take a card out of your hand, most likely a land, put it on the bottom of your library, and draw into more gas. Almost, 75% of the time when I was putting a land on the bottom of my library, I was drawing a card that mattered. There's a couple of times, sure, I drew a land, but Fire Prophecy was a great card. I know it's only dealing damage to creature and you're basically drawing a card, but I wished it would deal 4 damage. There's a lot of times where I did want to play it, where it wasn't going to kill the 4 toughness creature. Thwart the enemy, 3 mana, 2 and a green. It's an instant. Prevent all damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures your opponents control. So one-sided fog. I never really got to play it. No one in my group played it. Fog isn't necessarily a great and fun limited card. And I really thought that I would see it as a way to take care of some of my creatures or have it played against me and I'd lose my entire board. But I don't think in any of the games I played in our draft box that Thwart the Enemy came out. Snare Tactician, 3 mana, 2 and a white. It's human soldier. Whenever you cycle a card, tap target creature and opponent controls. I never had the opportunity to play the red-white cycle deck. I tried so hard on one of the drafts. Didn't come together. A couple of my friends did play the cycle deck. This card was cut every single time, which was really interesting. It just doesn't have the type of payoff that you want with cycling. I suppose, if you're a little more creative on a defensive cycling deck, it could work, but the aggressive cycling decks just do not want this. Excavation Mole, 3 mana, 2 and a green. It's a mole. It's a 3/3. It has trample. When Excavation Mole enters the battlefield, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. I really thought this was going to be a cool card. It has trample. I'd mutate on top of it. Here's the problem. There were a number of times that I played it in one of my rounds that I milled my best creature cards. I milled twice when it happened. I milled my best cards, and it made me sad. I'm sure that in maybe a non-limited format, it's got a lot of play, but I did not like playing this in draft. In fact, after my first round of games, I took them out. I just couldn't have myself milling my best cards so that I could have a creature mutate on it and give it trample. It just didn't seem to work. Okay, first uncommon is Katarina Crystal. It's 3 generic mana. It's an artifact. You can tap to add Teamer. So 1 green, or you can add 1 blue or 1 red. You can cycle it for 2. I love this cycle. I love that it has cycling. I know paying 3 mana is similar to like the Khans of Tarkir banners, but adding cycling onto the card was awesome. I played it when I needed the mana or to be able to fix my mana, and when I didn't need it, I cycled it. Great uncommon. I really like the direction they took on this. Next is Momentum Rumbler, 4 mana, 3 in a red. It's a dinosaur. When Momentum Rumbler attacks, if it doesn't have first strike, put a first strike counter on it. Whenever Momentum Rumbler attacks, if it has first strike, it gains double strike until end of turn. It's a 3/3. I forgot to mention that. I played this in my red-white deck, and I really wanted to do more work than it did. Here's the problem with it. You play it on turn 4, it doesn't have a haste. By the time your turn comes around that you can attack with it, what I found was it was either bouncing off a creature or it didn't have enough in its first strike ability to kill the other creature, and it was going to die. If this had had haste, now we're talking. Or if it cost 3 mana and you get a 3/3 with these potential upsides, then we're talking. As is, I just had a rough time really making this card work. And in a later round, one of my friends tried to make it work. Same exact thing. By this time, I had played a 0/5 or a 1/4, and unless there was some sort of combat trick, it just didn't do anything. Final uncommon is Channel Force, 4 mana, 2 in a white, 2 in a blue and a red. Instant, as an additional cost to cast the spell, discard X cards. Target player draws X cards. Channel Force deals X damage up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. I got stuck drafting this card twice. I actually drafted it in it was like maybe the last pick or the second to last pick. I didn't have really any desire to go blue-red, nor did it fit into any 3 rounds of my draft. I don't have an opinion on this card. I have no experience with it. It just doesn't seem to be a very fun card to play. All right, will we get a mythic rare or a cool rare? We have Bonder's Enclave. So Bonder's Enclave is a land. You can tap it at colors. You can pay 3 mana, tap it, draw a card, activate this ability only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. I had drafted one of these in one of the rounds. I wanted to play it because I was going, I think, Obzon, so I had a handful of creatures with power 4 or greater. The problem is that it was screwing over my mana fixing ability. And so unless I'm playing in a deck where I don't necessarily need a mana fix, this would be a good card. But as in Ikoria, I don't know that it really works, and I couldn't find a spot to play it. Okay, we have an island and then one of the token cards. All right, my favorite card out of the pack, or what is my pack one, pick one. Out of this pack, the uncommons don't really strike me as being anything awesome. I suppose if I really had to pick, I think because Ikoria is a wedge set and you can pull off the wedge set and make it work, I would probably out of this pick take the crystal. I found that it was very useful. I was able to use it to fix my mana, and there was one time where I didn't need the mana fixing. I cycled it, I drew into a card, and it was a card that I played, and it won me the game. So anyway, that's my pack one, pick one. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, please subscribe and share. Take some time to tell me in the comment section what was your pack one, pick one. Until next time, when I'm back with pack number 3 on my Magic the Gathering Ikoria Lair of Behemoths, what is your pick?